Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. A school board trustee is fighting back against sanctions put on her earlier this week. Sanctions she says she still hasn't been officially notified of. Plus a splash from the past. Windsor's oldest outdoor public pool is back in business. And this week's Rose City Rewind is looking back at an investigation that had just started in 1979 into a local plant, which would ultimately have fatal consequences for some workers. Funeral arrangements have been set for 3 members of the Harrow family found dead in their home last week. Families First in South Windsor posted an obituary today for Carly Walsh and her 2 children, 13-year-old Madison and 8-year-old Hunter. The obituary describes Carly as an ever-present mother whose children meant everything to her. Steve Walsh, Carly's husband and the father of the children, is not included in the arrangements. The bodies of the family of 4 were discovered by police at their home near Harrow on June 20th. As of Thursday afternoon, OPP have not released further details about how the family died. Visitation is set for July 1st. The funeral will take place on July 2nd, followed by burial at Greenlawn Memorial Gardens. A public school board trustee plans on pushing back against sanctions she now faces for misconduct. After a special meeting this week, the Greater Essex County District School Board placed 2 sanctions against trustee Linda Chin. That's because they feel she breached trustee code of conduct 5 times last year. That includes accusing someone on a school committee of being biased and speaking to the media without approval. The proposed sanctions include Chin being barred from attending the school's board parental involvement committee, as well as other ones that involve members of the public. That's until November 2026. Another sanction is that she should not be in any school board meetings between September and November, which includes private sessions. Chin says these punishments are too harsh.
I think it's too harsh. Yeah, I don't really think that I should be, suffered so serious sanction. I do believe that I didn't breach trustee code of conduct.
Board Chair Gail Hatfield says these consequences are permitted under the trustee's code of conduct, but she couldn't say how the punishment will change Chin's future behavior.
I don't have the crystal ball for that. For any trustee, it's a matter of following the rules and procedures for the conduct of board meetings. They are professional business meetings. They aren't what I would call open mic opportunities.
Chin has 14 days from getting the decision to respond. If she does, another meeting will take place to either confirm or revoke the board's decision. Well, a Brampton man convicted of smuggling nearly $30 million worth of meth into Canada at the Ambassador Bridge has been sentenced to 12 years in a federal prison. The 200 kilos of meth were found in the cab of Mohammed Abdirahman's trailer on Christmas Eve 2019. At the time, the Canada Border Service Agency said it was the agency's biggest meth bust for the previous 7 years. An expert testified the drugs could be worth as much as $29.4 million. The defense had sought 10 to 12 years, while the Crown had sought a stiffer 16 to 18-year sentence.
It is a lot of time in jail, but it's what we were essentially asking for in the range that we were expecting. So for lack of better words, I'm very happy with that. I think the reasonings and I respect His Honor's decision on how he got to that range. And our thing was basically that 10 to 12 year range fits in what someone in my client's position should receive, what is a fit and fair sentence. So I was happy. I know my client was happy with that as well. I'll say his wife was also happy with it too, because we're looking at a different range. 10 to 12 is a big difference from 16 to 18.
Transit Windsor is planning on building a new East End bus terminal. It will be located at the northwest corner of Lozon Parkway and Tecumseh Road, moving from its current location at Tecumseh Mall. A public consultation meeting on the plans just wrapped up at the WFCU Center. That's where we find our Dale Molnar, who joins us now live. Dale, can you give us some more information about what's in those plans?
Okay, well, I'm at this, the open house just wrapped up just a couple of minutes ago. This is a consultation process in what's called the Transit and Rail Project Assessment Process. So what they're trying to do here is move that East End terminal where Transit Windsor buses meet up with Town of Tecumseh buses, and they want to have another location because they want to expand the size. So here we had about a couple dozen people who came out to the Ontario room here at the WCU Center between 4 and 6, and they had a look at some of the maps and some of the information. Got a chance to ask some questions and talk to Dillon Consulting, which put together the engineering for this. One of the things that they got to see was the map of this. It's going to be located between Catherine Street and the northwest corner of Lausanne Parkway and Tecumseh Road East, near where that Rona sign is, if you can picture that. It's going to have more bus bays, 9 bus bays compared to 6, which is what they have over at the Tecumseh Mall. It'll have lighting, it'll have covered areas. It'll be kind of like the one over at Hotel Dieu Grace Hospital. Now, right now, there's a lot of trees there. So there's going to be a lot of work to be done here to create this. You'll see some video here, hopefully you're showing. And what they tell me is that when it comes to species at risk, the risk is low, but they might still have to do some permits and approvals. And there's also a tire center there that will not be impacted. They'll be able to build in behind that. So I asked a couple people here what they thought of this whole idea. Some people are for and some people are against.
I have concerns with where people who drop their kids off at the bus would even go. I have concerns about pedestrians crossing basically like 6 to 8 lanes of traffic to get to any of the nearby resources like grocery stores or banks. One of the advantages of where it is now at the mall is that during later hours, like closer to 9, stuff like that, the mall's still activated and people feel safer who don't usually take the bus. All of that kind of gets eliminated with this new plan.
Without this, I would never want to take a bus. This gives me the initiative to go out and first of all, try taking a bus, see where you can go. And so it's going to be good.
So this is going to be a $5 million project when it's all said and done, and City Council has already approved it. Now, in case you missed the meeting today, you still have a chance to make a comment. You can go to the city's website, and you have a chance to make a comment until July 29th. So they still have some T's to cross and some I's to dot and a few approvals to get. So that's going to take the rest of the year. They expect to get shovels in the ground early next year, and they expect that the bus terminal will be up and running sometime in mid-2026. Meg?
Thanks so much for that, Dale. That's the CBC's Dale Molnar reporting live. Neighborhood pools in Windsor have been open for weeks, but the city's swimming pools will open this Saturday. And it will be the first time in years people will be able to dive into a local favorite. The CBC's Chris Ensing reports.
Windsor's oldest outdoor public pool is back in business. The pool at Lansbury Park has been closed since 2022. It's reopening this weekend with a maximum capacity of 270 people. Show up early Saturday if you have plans to dive in.
I wouldn't be surprised if we are at capacity, not only this weekend, but probably for the summer, especially when it's hot.
This pool has picnic space, swimming lanes, and an entrance that mimics a beach. The $3 million renovation project makes this site fully accessible. Nearly all city pools open this weekend. Repairs at the central outdoor pool keep it closed until next weekend. This bit of summer relief comes on the heels of last week's heat dome, which saw temperatures touch the mid-30s in Windsor. Pools were closed because lifeguards weren't available.
You know, the lifeguards that we have are folks who are in school, a lot of them, and so they're not getting out of school to this week as well. And so it's always a fine balance. You never know when the hot weather is going to come, but I think by and large the schedule that we have is an appropriate schedule and one that balances the operational needs with the time when we see really hot weather, July and August.
The city says they're well staffed now with more than 200 people hired to ensure summer fun is safe.
We're at the point where we've regained the number of staff we had prior to the pandemic. Becoming certified as a lifeguard takes over 100 hours of training, and it's not done all at once. So normally when youth are, between 12 and 13 years old is when we try and capture them and get them moving through the program. And they may do a program or two a year until they turn the age that they can become certified as a lifeguard and an instructor, which prior to the pandemic was 16, but now it's been lowered to 15, which has also helped us.
City staff are encouraging people to sign up for lessons at all city pools, including Lansbury. And if it's booked, add your name to the wait list. Staff say they create new classes based on demand. Chris Hensing, CBC News, Windsor.
Some breaking news this hour. A strike by WestJet mechanics has likely been averted after the federal labor minister directed the labor board to resolve the outstanding terms of the collective agreement. The union says it will direct its members to refrain from any unlawful job action. WestJet had already canceled some flights and rerouted passengers ahead of the long weekend. Chatham-Kent police have charged a third person related to the death of a woman in Chatham earlier this month. A 23-year-old woman was arrested in Windsor on Wednesday. She was charged with first-degree murder and indignity to a dead body. Police say that's in connection with the death of a 27-year-old Louise Thompson of Milton. Police had previously arrested and charged two men, ages 44 and 59, both of Chatham, with first-degree murder and indignity to a dead body. Officials say this is an isolated incident with no ongoing risk to public safety. Windsor police are searching for suspects after a number of vehicles were set on fire this morning. Officers responded to a commercial lot on Tecumseh Road West. Windsor Fire and Rescue Services confirmed that several trucks caught fire at GFL Windsor, a waste collection facility. When they arrived, police say 6 unoccupied vehicles were fully engulfed in flames. No injuries have been reported. Officials estimate the fire caused $1 million in damage. The service's arson unit is now investigating and asked residents and business owners in the area to check their surveillance or dash camera footage. Via Rail was showing off its newest fleet on Windsor tracks today. It was the first time the new trains made their way this far south.
They're the most accessible trains in the world right now, so that is a big advantage. They're more comfortable. You can imagine the technology has advanced quite a bit since the last time we bought trains, so they're much more comfortable to ride, and also the benefit is people can be productive during the entire trip.
The trains will run between Windsor and Quebec City. They will begin replacing the old fleet beginning this summer. Their full 32 train roster will be in service by summer of 2025. On a tour today, they showed off the interior experience travelers will get on the train. They boast redesigned ergonomic seats, large adjustable tray tables, and fully accessible washrooms. We also asked about progress being made on the Amtrak Via Rail intercity passenger rail connection. That's to connect Toronto to Chicago by rail via Windsor and Detroit. The CEO of Via Rail says it's happening to connect, but there's still some work that needs to happen.
We're working closely with Amtrak as well as the border services for both countries to make this project happen. It is happening. There's a plan. There's funding. It is moving forward. So it takes a little bit of time because there's some work to do to make Windsor Station a border station. But the plans are in place, and you'll start seeing some Amtrak trains coming here and interchanging with our trains probably in the next year or two.
We have had many discussions with our partners in Detroit, and certainly we're advocating with the federal government to make sure that there are resources available. It would mean pre-clearance for customs on this site at this particular spot that we're standing, and that requires an investment, and so probably a $10 million investment. And so resources are scarce. We have to make sure that this rises as a priority to the government level, and that's our main goal, is to make sure they see this as a priority because it actually has an economic return to our country.
When this story aired back in June of 1979, it would have been hard to predict what would have followed. This story is about the start of an investigation into the Bendix brake plant in Windsor. At the time, a handful of cancer deaths had been reported with asbestos used in the manufacturing process to blame. The plant closed the following year, but the cancer rates would continue to grow. This report done by former CBC Windsor reporter John McQuaker.
Plant on Argyle Street in Windsor. Except for a period of 8 years, workers here have been making brake linings for cars and trucks since 1940. The brake linings are made from asbestos, and the process involves drilling, riveting, and grinding the material. Asbestos fibers are practically indestructible, and the union says until 1974, there was a lot of asbestos dust floating around in the plant.
And there was clouds of asbestos dust. There was improper respirators. There was no ventilation system, no control over the waste products that went through the vent system that was there. And we don't know if it contaminated the neighborhood, you know, the children in the surrounding areas. There was no real control over it, as deadly as asbestos was.
The Bendix general manager, whose office is in this building, says the plant is well within the provincial standard for asbestos dust in the air. Bendix says there's no evidence to establish that exposure to asbestos caused cancer to any employees. Asbestos has been linked to cancer in humans, but it wasn't until last year that the Ontario Workmen's Compensation Board decided there was enough evidence to link exposure to asbestos dust with certain cancers of the larynx. The board has decided not only to look into the deaths of the 3 men identified by the union, it'll also conduct a full-scale probe to determine if any other cancer victims worked for the company.
How long have you worked here?
26 years.
Are you at all worried?
Sure I'm worried. Why not? Why shouldn't I be? I want to retire in 3 more years, but what's going to happen after?
Call It Kennedy is off tonight, and Chris Potter joins us now. Chris, this is the first day in what feels like a long time that you didn't immediately start to sweat when you got outside.
100%. I mean, obviously, Meg, the heat was the big story last week, even this past weekend. Today, a little fresher. I mean, if you're not a fan of the heat, today was just for you. It does look like temperatures will begin to increase a little bit as we step forward into Friday and Saturday, then they'll back off. But normal daytime highs this time of year are pretty much across the board are in the mid-20s. Mid to high teens in areas over eastern Ontario and basically the low 20s as you head down towards Windsor and Chatham. Closer to home, give you a look at the temperatures currently. 20 right now in London. Goddard's is 17, 22 in Windsor. And in terms of the humidity, that's not a big factor either. Humidity levels remain quite low, so not much of an increase in what it feels. That will start to change as we get into the day tomorrow. In terms of active weather, I mean, there's not much to point out right now. Some passing fair weather cumulus. That's basically it. And fair weather cumulus suggests fair weather. And that's what today brought us. But we're going to see a little bit more cloud move in for the overnight, mostly mid to high level clouds. So we're not going to see any opportunity for rainfall for tonight and into the day tomorrow. We will start to see a potential of rainfall by Friday late evening. We're going to start to see some showers start to trickle in, if you will, from lower Michigan. And this will become the Saturday's forecast. It's not going to be a washout day for Saturday, but obviously it's a long weekend. A lot of people are going to be heading out and trying to enjoy outside activities. It looks like you're going to need your umbrella from time to time. There will also be the risk of some non-severe thunderstorms. Heavier downpours can't be ruled out. And this is going to continue through the day on your Saturday, but it will clear as we get into Sunday. In terms of overnight tonight, temperatures anywhere from 11 to 14 degrees. Winds will be calm. No real threat of active weather, like I suggested before, until Friday night and into Saturday. For tomorrow, daytime highs will climb back up into the mid, maybe the upper 20s. It will probably feel as high as 30 when you factor in the humidity, so a little bit more humid, but still very comfortable if you're not a fan of the heat. It does look like on Saturday, once again, the wet weather day, on and off in nature. Highs around 28, probably going to feel like 32. Backing off towards 22 for Sunday. We will start to see that cloud thin out during the second half of the day, giving way to lots of sunshine for Monday in time for July 1st. And it looks like the winds will be light. High pressure in place. So for fireworks, Mag, it looks like you're good to go. It's into Tuesday and Tuesday night and into Wednesday. Maybe you're taking next week off. Continuing your long weekend, it looks like showers will try to return at least Tuesday night and into Wednesday.
I'm not taking next week off, but that forecast is looking pretty good. Thanks so much for that, Chris.
You got it.
There's more news coming up after the break. Stay with us. federal health minister announced the universal dental care program is expanding to include children under 18 and people who receive the disability tax credit.
This means that a family who's having to make that choice about whether or not they pay groceries or they get the oral health care that's preventative for their family, they don't have to make that choice anymore. It means for a person with disabilities that where they often have such complex issues that the costs involved in getting oral health care are totally impossible to them. A barrier beyond even those that they've got to face every day just trying to get in and out of buildings, that now that's gone.
The government estimates 1.2 million more people will now be able to apply for the program. Critics say basing eligibility for those with disabilities on the tax credit leaves out a lot of vulnerable Canadians. New research is shedding light on why some people sailed through the pandemic without being infected by COVID-19, while others did not. Christine Birak takes a look at a study from the UK that's offering up fresh genetic clues.
Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've known not everyone who breathes in this coronavirus gets sick. Scientists now think they might know why. Based on a unique trial that involved infecting healthy volunteers with the virus, researchers found a gene that's highly active in people who never seem to get COVID.
This gene is in the family of genes that our body uses to show our immune system bits of pathogens. But the function of this gene is still undiscovered.
In a world's first challenge trial done at the height of the pandemic, UK researchers infected dozens of healthy, unvaccinated adults with a low dose of the original coronavirus. Then they closely tracked how long it took their immune system to kick in. In those who never became infected, researchers saw high levels of activity in a specific gene called HLA-DQA2. Scientists think it helps flag viral invaders to the immune system so fast it destroys them before they can replicate.
So what I think is going to happen now is you're going to have researchers all over the world buckling down and learning about this.
Researchers at McGill have also been collecting cells from people who've never had COVID, searching for a link.
It puts an anchor in the ground and says, we got to look at this and everything around it. So that's how major discoveries are made. But it doesn't mean that the work is finished.
While the virus has changed and vaccines, along with infections, have already shown our bodies pieces of this coronavirus, scientists say this new gene discovery could help invent new vaccines that prompt an even quicker immune response to COVID and possibly other respiratory viruses too. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
We've got a story about a family of badgers who've made a cemetery home. That's coming up after the break. family of badgers have decided to call a BC cemetery home. The mom with her babies moved in about a week ago, nesting in a network of tunnels near grave sites. CBC's Corey Bullock paid a visit.
There's something stirring underground at the Cranbrook Cemetery, but it's less horror thriller and more David Attenborough nature documentary. A family of badgers is calling the cemetery grounds, both above and below, home.
They've found the marmot den that has been a bit of a problem for us, and yeah, they moved in, took over the marmot den.
The city of Cranbrook says it has put up barriers to warn the public of the family's presence. And even though they're hunting and digging holes near people's graves, there's not much the city can do until mom and her babies move on.
While they're denning, we won't be disturbing them. And most likely they'll move on.
They're listed as an endangered species provincially and federally.
You cannot harm or harass a badger, and you cannot destroy their burrow.
The province says it's not unusual for badgers to build a den in a golf course, backyard, or cemetery. But some people might not be so pleased that the animals are digging where their loved ones are laid to rest.
If they leave the den area, there might be things that we can do to mitigate them coming back to the area. And hopefully they'll just move on and we'll be able to just clean up after them and have the space go back to the way it was.
It's likely the short-legged omnivores will move on shortly. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
That's it for CBC Windsor News. Thanks so much for tuning in. See you back here tomorrow night.